said, I've had no prior knowledge of like electrical work. I've never done this before. I believe you can do this yourself. If I can do it, you can definitely do it. Hey everyone, my name is Luke, and what you can see from the title, I am installing the Switch Pros electrical system today on the 2023 Toyota Tundra. So in my last video, I installed this steel bumper, this low profile bumper. The winch works, not going to use it for the electrical system, but LED bar does not have a switch or a wiring harness or anything like that. So that is what I'm going to hook up to the Switch Pro system today to test it out. This will allow me to control this LED bar from inside the cab and all future accessories that I get. Okay, so I have a plan in my head how I want to set all this up. This is the mounting bracket where the Switch Pros is going to go. This big box thing is for the winch. This is not its final resting place. I don't know where I'm going to put it. I don't want it on top of my fuse box, so I will be relocating this in the future. This just allows me to turn on and off my winch. Switch Pros needs to be mounted by the battery. The battery is on the passenger side of the Tundra. For the mounting plate, we have to mount it vertically, not flat, because they don't want water to accumulate and oxidize any of the wires. The Toyota Tundras actually have this nice like plastic vertical surface that I'm gonna be mounting it to, so all I'm gonna have to do is just kind of find its final resting place, level it so it looks nice and neat, drill some holes and attach it. So the way I can make this easier on myself is this plastic piece. If you just essentially pull it out this way, it just comes straight off. I also have a negative bus bar, so all of the positive leads are going to go to the Switch Pro, and all of the negative leads are going to go to this bus bar that I'm also going to mount vertically on here. And then I'm going to show you where I'm going to wire through the firewall to get to the controller. All right, I took the battery out so you can see there was two 10mm screws and three 12mm screws holding this in place. But this is the passenger side where I will be mounting the Switch Pro to that wall, and the firewall is right here where some electrical systems go through. All right, so for the Switch Pros, I see two good options that you can put the wiring through the firewall. One is the passenger side, and the second is the driver side. I'm going to talk about the one I don't want to do first, the driver side firewall. One, you would have to get the wiring over the engine, and I don't want to do that. I'm sure there might be no problems with that if you were to do it, but I don't want to do that. And secondly, where I want to mount the controller, there might not be enough length of wire for me to go through. Where I want to mount it is not the left side of the steering wheel where you see most Switch Pros in most vehicles. I want to go on top of the dash where that little storage cubby is above the monitor. I'm sure you might have seen like a bulletproof mounting solution. I'll throw a picture up just to give you a visual. But I don't want to drill holes in my left side of the steering wheel. I would rather drill a single hole at the top of the dash where it's a little bit inconspicuous. And I'll show you where its final resting place is going to be. The only problem with the passenger side is there's a lot of, you'll see, I'll bring the GoPro, but there's a lot of tight spaces in there. So for me to run a wire from the top of the dash down to the passenger side under the glove box area and through that firewall might be a little bit of a tight fit. So we're gonna try it. That's what I ideally want to do, and then we'll go from there. We're gonna jump inside of the truck here just so I can show you how everything is going to look in here. So, all right, turning it around. So here is the controller to control all your switches. So most people drill a hole through this and essentially put their controller here. That is nice, but I don't want to drill a hole through there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a plate mounting system on the top of the dash here, and then essentially an arm will come out and it will be right here for me to access, right next to the monitor. Run that wire below the glove box and through the firewall to the engine there. I have some plastic trim wedges and I'm going to see what it looks like under here, so I'm going to prop this up. All right, so I kind of got it started already. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm propping this up with these little wedges, these little plastic trim wedges, and so this is going to come up and out of here, and then we're going to see what it looks like down in there. I will try to figure this out with 2 hands and I will update you. All right, next we're coming under the glove box. I'm going to try to get this trim off, release these tabs in place like so. Try not to get them snapped back into place as you're pulling. All right, that will pull that out. All right, so there, I'm not sure if the camera's gonna pick this up, but there is a little bit of light shining through. I have the light posted where we took off the trim of the top of the dash, and so we're going to try to feed the control wire through there. Update, I've been able to successfully wire it under the glove box. It was a little bit of a tight fit, so what I ended up using was this little guy, and I hooked essentially the end and I pulled it through. I was able to feed it through enough just by hand, but there's just this last little bit there that I cannot get my hand and fingers through, so that's where this guy came in, hooked it, and it was perfect. The next challenge is going to be, there's the firewall hole right there, and it's a very tight squeeze, so trying to fit this very small, or I would say not very small end through that. We'll see if I have to do any cutting. I would prefer not to, but I'll give you an update as I try to feed it through. A little update. So we got it through at the top of the dash, came under the glove box, and now we got it going through the firewall. I came from under the firewall, and the wire is coming up, and I put it behind this plastic, and then we got it right here to mount right to our control panel, or our Switch Pro. So the only problem I have with this is now it's not a completely flush fit with the that firewall plug, so I ran it underneath. Reason being I did that is, so if there was a hole on top and water were to come in this engine or dirt or whatever, it can't sneak through the top. So it has a less likely chance of sneaking through the bottom where now this plug isn't sealed. I don't want to cut a hole in this because I haven't decided if that's the best decision yet or if I need to put like a little V-notch at the bottom of that. But for right now, that's where it's planted. Maybe not its final resting place, but it comes up nicely there and it's going to plug into here, so it's going to look relatively tucked away. All right, update. I took out essentially the cigarette lighter type thing, and then I didn't have to drill a hole, so that will actually just fit my control wire right through it. All right, got that back snapped in place, so no hole drilling. That's perfect. We're going to save the positive cable from the Switch Pros to the battery for last. We need to connect these wires. We're going to plug this in. We're going to connect the negative terminal to directly to the negative point on the battery, and then this light blue wire is going to be connected to an ignition source. I was reading online, and we are going to do a fuse tap, and what that means is I don't need to splice into any wires, which is good. I don't want to mess with any OEM wiring on the vehicles. A fuse tap will allow me to plug it in. I read online there is a couple options, but I'm going to test them for myself and we'll see how it goes. What I did was I found a fuse using a multimeter. I don't even really know how to use this. I just quick looked on how to find ignition controlled fuses. Good news is I actually found an ignition controlled fuse inside the cab, and I didn't realize this ignition wire was this long, so this will actually be able to reach inside the cab. And the benefit of that is that I don't want a wire trying to come under the cap of this fuse box, because one, the wire's gonna rub, and two, like, I don't want there to be a gap in this fuse box. So I don't want to do any cutting or anything like that. So what I'm gonna actually do is feed the wire through the firewall where the ignition controlled wire is, and I'm going to hook it up to, or fuse tap into one of the fuses I found, and I'll show you which fuse that is. I need to take this battery off because there's no way I can get my hand back there. So I'm gonna take the battery off just so I can run this ignition wire through the firewall. I'm just gonna wrap a little bit of electrical tape around my, like a wire guide, so that little stick, and I'm just going to make sure that's looped on there so I can pull it right through. All right, come around this side so you can see I looped my wire in this wire guide, and I just use this fiberglass stick, and it came through the firewall. Now I'm going to show you where I'm going to tap it into. So, like I said, we are going to connect to our ignition source fuse using a fuse tap. So a fuse tap allows you not to splice into your wiring, which is really advantageous because I don't want problems down the line, and this is really easy to swap out. So this fuse tap is going on my ignition wire into the fuse box that is ignition controlled. So I used a multimeter, and what I found is this 15 amp fuse, which is a power outlet number 1. That one is ignition controlled. I tested it with the multimeter. It was off when the truck was off. I turned the ignition on and it was activated. So we are gonna pull that guy right there. I'll try to get under there so you can see which one I'm talking about exactly. Right here is the inside of the fuse box, and I kind of already pulled it out already. If you can see, it's that blue one to the right. I'm gonna pull that one out and we're gonna fuse tap it. Normal fuses tend to look like this, and all of their fuses are these little stubby things. Problem is that to connect those fuses to the fuse tap, they need a long prong to get in there. So I got regular fuses. Fuses are expensive. I didn't realize that. It was like 18 bucks for, I got fuses from 5 to 30 and there's 7 each. So I didn't expect it to be quite so expensive. But that was Ace Hardware. Dangerous place for a man to be. I got other stuff there anyway. We're gonna pick back up. We're gonna go back into the fuse tap and try to get that working. Now that I have a 15 amp, that will fit right in there. And then we're gonna plug that into the fuse. So what we have to do is we have to connect the fuse tap with the ignition wire. You are going to need something to crimp it with. So we can take off the end. We're gonna connect these two. You need to crimp it to hold it in place. All right, that's crimped in there. All right, so now you can see I have the fuse tap into the ignition activated fuse placement. It's there, and then next we'll have to do is clean up a little bit of this wiring. We're gonna get some zip ties, make this look all nice and neat, and so we can tuck it up under there. All right, now we kind of have our wires tucked up and out of the way, so it'll be easy just to put the bottom cover back on this. We have the control wire running through there. It's all nice and neat now. The ignition fuse is plugged in. But now we're going to go back to the front of the vehicle. What we need to do now is we're going to disconnect the battery again because I had to drive to the store, and now we're back. I am going to, and I already did this, I hooked this ground up to my bus bar. I got this bus bar at AutoZone, so like you can get a negative bus bar anywhere. But the point of this negative bus bar is all your accessories are going to have a ground. We can essentially follow all positive and negative wires to this central location here. All right, and I'm leaving these loose because I don't know where its final resting place is going to be just yet. The negative on the bus bar to the negative terminal on the battery. We have the negative ground for the Switch Pro on. And now it's time to hook up our accessories. So we're going to hook up my LED bar, which I got for these. I got the ground and the positive wire. I had to do my own wiring, so I used I think it's 12 gauge wire. Used butt connectors to connect that. Now we're going to tie them into the Switch Pro. All right, so for switch number 1, it is the brown wire. So we need to pick out the brown. I hope this is brown. I'm not colorblind, but A lot of colors in here. This appears to be brown. This will be switch number 1. We are going to connect switch number 1 into positive end of the LED bar. So we're using a butt connector. We're going to crimp these, heat it up, and then I'm also going to put this heat shrinking tube over it. You don't need to do it with a butt connector, but I want it to look kind of like neat. I don't want a light blue kind of showing. So 1, this black will kind of hide it a little bit, and 2, it'll just kind of be another source of protection for moisture. And for everybody wondering, I'm not somebody who's like worked on like electrical ever, so this is one of my first times doing this. If you're having second thoughts about it, there's no shame in getting someone to help. I believe you can do this yourself. If I can do it, you can definitely do it. Because like I said, I've had no prior knowledge of like electrical work. I've never done this before. I just did a little bit of Google searching, did my research a little bit, and so far it seems pretty straightforward. I'm not running into huge issues. I think the longest part of any project is you just forget stuff. Like I forgot about the battery, so that was just an extra step that took extra time. I had to run to the store, so it's just things that you don't foresee to encounter make projects like twice as long. All right, so that is crimped on there. Then we're just gonna apply some heat so it shrinks around the wire. Some of these, I did not know, need heat to shrink, and then what I realized on the fuse tap and some of these other connectors is they're just like straight plastic and they just burn, so they don't shrink around your wire. Again, not necessary. I just want to hide the blue personally, and it's just a secondary layer of moisture protection. Being slow is probably best because otherwise you will burn the insulation a little bit, which I'm kind of doing, which I'm trying not to do. But for it to get a nice tight seal on. There we go. It's black, blue's not showing. It looks a little bit more neat in my opinion. All right, here is where I'm going to attach the power from the Switch Pro to the battery. So it's recommended take the negative off the terminal. And this also has I think it's a 125 amp fuse in here. So there's no way you're gonna overload this thing, damage it, whatever. Because I understand this is a little expensive. When you want to protect your investment, that's where the fuse is. And you'll see a lot of other setups. People have a different like terminal, like they'll have a negative bus bar and a positive bus bar. Switch Pros does not recommend you put a positive terminal on here because there's exposed wires, 1, and 2, this is a really smart device that people don't realize that it has an internal shutoff system. So if my LED bar were to go over 20 amps, it will shut that switch off. So it's actually a really smart system. You don't need to go and buy all these extra accessories that possibly just make this messy and have more exposed wires. Really smart by Switch Pros, and it just makes everything a little bit neater. Something that might be advantageous to have is like something to add more accessories to your positive terminal. So essentially what I just had to do, because the positive wire for the Switch Pros was a little small for the Tundra's bolt, I used a step drill. I just drilled a 5/16 hole. So just to make it a little bit more room. Your choice, you can either do that or you can buy an accessory that goes on the terminal block so you can add more positive mounting accessories. I got an ignition light on, so that's good. Good news. Ignition is connected. I turned the accessories on the truck. I didn't have to turn the truck on completely, so the accessories are on. This is powered on, which means the positive terminal is working, the negative is working. We'll see if the light works. Alrighty, so everything works. What's nice about the Switch Pros as well is they have an app, so you can literally just turn on your accessories with your Bluetooth, which is really convenient. And they also have a dimming feature, so I can have it at 10%, 50%, or 100%. That is quite handy to have there. All right, so to give you a rundown, we got everything connected. I just need to tighten up the bolts. This is not its final resting place, but it's okay for now. The wires, I need to be, I'm gonna do a little bit of wire management and do what I can, but I think I want more of the wires to come down and be a little bit more uniform and out of the way. I've kind of looped them and zip tied them and tucked them under here a little bit. So it'll do for now. And then the rest of these wires, I just zip tied, kind of jammed it between the engine bay and the fuse box. So that's not going anywhere. And then I'll show you the inside as well. All right, so to give you perspective inside the cab, we're gonna turn the accessories on. Bar lights up. I already have it labeled as the grill light bar. And that is what turns it on and off for us. So that's how it looks inside the cab. Again, it's going to be mounted on an arm that will be put right here. It'll be kind of more in my upper right hand view right next to the monitor, and it just goes right through that cigarette lighter that I took out. Right, now that you've seen the inside, you know how I ran everything from inside to in here. Hopefully you guys got a little bit of insight on how I put this together. If you guys have any suggestions on how I can make this a little bit more professional, I'm all ears, honestly. Like I said, I'm not an electrician, I'm not a technician, I've never done automotive electric work before, so this is my first time. So hopefully I gave people that don't know what they're doing a little bit of insight, and if there are professionals out there, please let me know how you would do things differently. Obviously I would like this wire a little bit longer, tuck this wire control box for the winch out of the way. I would like maybe some like eyelets to help channel the wires, make it look a little bit more professional. Like I said, with this, you don't need an outside positive terminal box. It shuts off on its own if it exceeds its amperage for a certain switch. So the LED bar, I think it'll only go up to like 5-6 amps, and this is rated to 20 amps. So I shouldn't have any issues there unless there's like a short somewhere, and then it'll automatically turn off. For accessories higher than 20 amps, you go through switches 5 through 8. They are 2 wires each, like this right here is 2 purple wires, and essentially that, I think it might be 35 amp load. I'm not 100% sure, I'd have to look at the instructions, but essentially it'll handle a higher load of accessories, like if you were to do, let's say, a fridge, or a bigger light bar, I don't know, whatever you need. Hopefully that was pretty straightforward, and if you guys have any questions, please let me know. The next products coming in, I will be getting a bed rack, some ditch lights, and more. A company, I'm not gonna name them yet because it's not all set in stone. I did put the product request form through the marketing company, Tundra, and hopefully they will send that out within the next 4 to 6 weeks. So that will be the next project video coming up. If you guys like this video, please give me a like. And if you want to see more of this coming up, please give me a subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you, everybody.